Episode 3, JR Connect. We are extremely fortunate today. We are big guest, Ryan Fisher.
How are you, gentlemen?
Very well.
Nice to see you.
You too.
Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
We touched on briefly in episode 1, partly from my journey in real estate, that you played a big part in that, and it's been a wild ride, and hearing and learning and everything from you. So what better way to, I guess, hear it from you yourself?
Yeah, well, just on that, I want to say that you guys have done it all yourselves. It's been nice to bounce things around from time to time, but you should be very proud of what you've achieved, and the business is a huge success, and that comes down to what you guys have put into it and will continue to put into it. So I'm very happy to be here, and yeah, congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's I think the connection for you and I in that time when you were in that path of real estate, and you've done a few things along the way. I think it'd be really awesome to kind of touch on, I guess, what started your journey, and then kind of what got you into the real estate space. Because I mean, for anyone who's had any communication with you or bought and sold or anything, you are built for it, and that level of communication and the way you go about it. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about, I guess, your start point and what that looks like? Yeah,
I mean, I sort of came into it by accident. I won't go too far back, but I was working in a kitchen as a chef over in London. And I wasn't sort of destined to become a chef, let's put it that way. I was learning a lot of really good sort of skills at the time. And at some point, one of the chefs asked me to step in and negotiate for the produce. So like the prawns, the quail, the zucchini flowers, whatever. So the first thing I ever negotiated on was fruit and vegetables, basically. And I just had a bit of a knack on the phone. I enjoyed communicating in that way. I liked business. And I always used to look out through the pass while I was working in the kitchen. And I used to see people coming in suits and, coming in for dinners and groups of people. And I was sort of stuck on the other side in a little white uniform with a tea towel, and was always wondering like what's on the other side, but never really knew how to get there. And then the chef said to me one day, look, you're not really going to go on to, set the world alight as a chef. Your palate's not great. Your knife skills are okay, but your work ethic has really sort of kept you in a role here, and we enjoy you being part of the team. But I've listened to you on the phone. Some of the stuff you've done commercially with the suppliers and things like that's been very helpful. You should maybe look at sort of business in some sort of facet, you know what I mean? So then I came back to Australia, got a job at Harvey, just selling, appliances and things like that. And then that led me to getting sort of, not poached, I would say, but just to having a conversation with somebody who came in to buy some appliances, who was a developer. And he sort of planted the seed to me that you should consider looking into real estate. Instead of selling the appliances, sell the assets in which they're going into. So then it was a case of, okay, where do I look into it? So I did a bit of due diligence. I looked at Sydney, I looked at Queensland, I looked at Melbourne. I decided on Melbourne. I came to Melbourne. And then I went and sort of applied at, a few different places, as you would. Got a job, didn't really work out.
Okay. Why is that?
I feel like they were probably quite a conservative environment, very traditional in the way they operated, which was fine. I have huge respect for people that operate that way. It's not wrong. There's no wrong or right. It's just probably not the energy levels that I was bringing at the time. I was ringing people at 11:30 at night, and then getting back up at 7 in the morning and doing it again, So I was ringing files that, they'd put notes on from 2 years previously. But I knew that because of the conversations I was having with the clients, I knew that it was working. It just wasn't fitting the model that the environment I was in suited.
Yeah.
And he sort of said to me, the guy I worked for at the time, said, look, don't give up on the industry. I think you could go on and do really well. It's just, this isn't your space. And then that led to me finding a bit more of a boutique environment, which allowed me to go and flourish and kick on from there.
Yeah.
Nice. Just touching on what Ryan said before, you're definitely built for sales, just in regards to your communication, the way that you speak. Was there anyone early on in your life that sort of had a bit of influence around that, sort of parents or mentors?
Probably the first chef that I worked for.
Yeah.
In a kitchen, communication is like the most important thing. If communication is not happening at a really good level, the whole thing just falls to bits.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things that I've always tried to apply when coming into any industry, whether I've gone, even on my personal development stuff, like if you're going to go and do something, like you go all in, you really want to try and maximize it.
Yep.
And it's not always a case of looking at what other people are doing. It's sometimes looking at what they're not doing, right? And then trying to double down on that as well. And one of the biggest things that I heard when I came into real estate was that communication lacked, which I couldn't really understand, because it's like, well, hang on, that's like the main premise of your job. Like you need to be educating people on the market, you need to be following up, you need to be touching base, you need to be communicating, really important things on a consistent basis. You need to have a process and a system to do that, which again falls into what I was learning in the kitchen. And it was basically a case of, okay, instead of communicating around prep and communicating about dishes and, order flow and all this sort of stuff, if I can take that sort of thought process and the importance of that thought process and bring it into my business acumen, then that's going to stand me in good stead. And it's interesting, the better you are at communicating, the easier it is to build relationships, because if you're communicating at a very good level, it means you need to know what you're talking about. And if you know what you're talking about, it means you're competent. And if you're competent, people trust you. And if people trust you, they do business with you. Yeah. So it all stems from the initial thought process of going, okay, let's just communicate at a really high level. So I think it probably came from the kitchen. And then where I really sort of fine-tuned it in terms of on a phone was working in a call centre as a second job when I was in Queensland trying to put some money together. And I was basically just, 6-hour blocks on a phone trying to get people to, buy products and all this sort of stuff. Very hard slog, very, very difficult. But I think that allowed me to build up a bit of a acumen on the phone that was then transferable without knowing it, I would say.
Yeah.
I think if you said to anyone in real estate right now, sit down and do 6 hours on a phone, you would only find the ones that have gone on to be, the top in the industry that would actually be able to do that.
Yes.
And that's, as you said, for communication being the starting point, you just traded the zucchini flowers for houses.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, sales is understanding your product to a very high level and then being able to communicate that with competence. That's ultimately what it is. I think as soon as you start to sell, you can start to go wrong. It can become a little bit sort of car salesy. I think you're just a person who needs to provide information at a very honest and high level, and then people will make their decisions based on that. And I think the best operators, especially in the market at the moment, which is a little bit tough, the best operators that I find I come across or that I've dealt with aren't looking to set the next meeting, they're looking to set the next touch point. If you set the next touch point consistently, the meeting arrives. Or if you set the next touch point consistently, the offer will come. If you set the next touch point consistently, the listing appraisal will arrive. So if you're always conscious of what's my next touch point, what's the next bit of value I can add, whether it be on a phone, whether it be over text, whether it be by email, whether it be in person, if that's your mentality, that will pay dividends and, you'll do well out of that.
100%. I think for anyone who's not sure what to do next, it's just as simple as communicate and add that level of value.
Yeah.
And that you've always had that as your probably core pillar is just add value to people consistently. Yeah. Constantly.
That's ultimately your main responsibility. Yeah.
In terms of your real estate journey, talk us through a little bit about that. What maybe some highs and lows throughout the process. Real estate is often, seen as quite an easy industry to come into. A lot of people chase, the high-end properties and chase the success that comes with that. How have you found that?
It's been a journey, I would say. It's something that I'm very thankful that I found, for sure, because it came to me at a stage in my life where if it hadn't have come, I really don't know what I would have gone and done at that time. The biggest thing I could say about real estate is it's probably one of the only industries in the world where after one phone call, someone lets you into their house. So from a networking perspective and from a basis of being able to learn about people and different circumstances and different, different dynamics of just people, really, there's nothing better. So I think it gives you a really strong level of EQ as you progress, because you're forced to develop a good level of emotional intelligence. The highs have been very high, for sure, in terms of when I came into the industry, I was sort of trying to obtain something that on society's metric of success was sort of rammed down everyone's throat. It looks like, the car, the watch, how much GCI you're riding, your value in the industry is almost attached to the price point of the properties you're selling. And unfortunately, I got sort of caught up in that very early in my career, which I think is natural. I think, you can't be too hard on yourself.
If everyone goes through it, hey?
Yeah, exactly. I think...
you almost need to.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like a rite of passage in a way. Thankfully, and look, you create your own luck and your own work ethic determines how quickly or not quickly you achieve something. But I think because of the intensity that I approached it with and the drivers that I had at the time, it allowed me to get to a certain point quite quickly. And then also the good thing that came from that is realizing quite quickly that this isn't it's all it's cracked up to be. Don't get me wrong, you retain your ambition and you retain your attributes that allow you to achieve a lot of these things, but I think the premise of why you're trying to achieve it changes. So I got to a point in my career where I just sort of looked at it and went, I don't know, like I've done it, and the big thing that I was thinking that was going to be waiting for me when I got there just wasn't there. So that forced me to then have to go and rewire a lot of things. So I sort of took a break, travelled, went and explored different things that I wanted to explore. But the one thing I'd say about my career that I've been very proud of is that I look back at it and go, okay, whenever I've needed to come back into real estate, I've got the ability to do it. It's there for me. It's an industry that I know quite well. It's a marketplace and, an industry that I feel like I can tap into and sort of bring people value pretty quickly. But yeah, there's been, like I said to you, there's been highs and there's been lows, but I feel like I've dealt with the lows in my own way. I've gone away and done what I needed to do at the time.
From anyone that watches and anyone who's watched, there's plenty of people that have watched your story. Like you've come into markets that people spend years trying to crack into, and streets, Beaconsfield Parade or these types of areas, and you've come in essentially with precision and executed in such a way that some people look and go, that'll be a 5-year process, and you've done that in 5 weeks. How do you think that, or what have you done to set yourself apart, and do you think that it's a barrier that people put on themselves to say that it's going to take me years and years to build up that level of... Yeah,
I think it probably is a barrier that people put on themselves. I think that the complexity of it is a little bit oversold due to sort of social media and Instagram and all these sorts of things. I believe the reason why I'm able to come into markets and penetrate them quite quickly is because I'm prepared to look for the problems that no one else is prepared to look for, and to sort of focus on solving those. I also look at marketplaces as like a jigsaw puzzle. So if you pick up a jigsaw puzzle and tip it on the floor, you've got all the pieces, and you slowly put them together, and all of a sudden you've got a marketplace. The way you do that is data. So I've always looked at markets and gone, okay, who are the people within a market? And whether this be real estate, football, anything really. Even when I was working at Harvey Norman, selling appliances, it was like, who are the people that are going to have the highest probability of needing to hear from me? So at Harvey Norman, in between customers, it was businesses. Do they need a new toasting machine, a new fridge, new microwave, new kettle? So who are the people that I need to ring? Mechanics, hairdressers, dentists. Okay, they're the people that have the highest probability of needing a product that I'm prepared to sell, right? When I came into real estate, yeah. Well, if you need one, I've still got the discount code. Yeah. Fish try Harvey Norman 20%. That's not true. Don't ever try and claim that.
The link is not in the bio.
Yeah, it's not. And then with real estate, it's like, okay, it's data. Who are the people in the market with the highest probability of needing me to speak to them? It's people that have had properties that haven't sold, who need a new strategy put in front of them, that need assistance and need a new level of energy to come in and try and get that sold. It's people who have had a holding pattern in the marketplace that determine that they're coming up to a point where they're ready to sell. So you want to try and make your job as easy for yourself as possible. And then I think the other thing as well is it's having the courage in your convictions to find something that you believe is a point of difference that lines up with your values and your processes and what you believe in. So for me, it was no auction. I don't believe in the auction process. I genuinely don't. I'm not saying it's wrong. There's people out there that do a phenomenal job. For me, it's just not something that I believe in. So I built a business model and I built a strategy within the market that was able to penetrate based off something that I could stick true to on a daily basis. Because then you don't have to worry about what anyone else is doing. This is my process. This is what I believe in. This is my strategy. This is the way I communicate. This is the way I articulate. And this is the way I negotiate and facilitate a process. Let's go. And then you basically put your blinders on. And if you're following the correct data and you're following a process that you believe in, sure, you'll have to refine. Sure, you'll have to come across little things that you need to change. Of course, that's progression. But if you can build that formula and then go and speak to people with the highest probability of wanting to deal with you, and then perform, that will allow you to penetrate into a market and do really well. And it's no different to football. It's no different to anything, in my opinion.
You're putting the blinders on with that process and that belief. Has that ever put you in a position where you've been really, really close to securing a piece of business or missed out on something because of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of occasions where I've been sat in a property that would be phenomenal to represent, something that I would love the opportunity to sell. and they are categorically going down the auction path. And they've brought me in as a consideration. I've actually had somebody say to me, look, if you were happy to bring an auctioneer into the process, we would let you market it and sell it.
Wow.
And I've had to say, I'm sorry, on that basis, I'm just not comfortable. Because the second I do that, I can no longer move forward in the market knowing that that's what I stand by, if that makes sense. And that's of more value to me. And that's going to be the same with whatever markets I go on to work in for the rest of my life. I have a process and I stick by it.
So you've sat there, been given essentially the keys to the house.
Yeah, I never saw the keys, but I knew they were close. Yeah.
The keys were close. They're about to go get a set cut, and you've said, I can't sell this house for you.
Yeah. I said I'd love to, and if you're happy to be open-minded around my process, then we can proceed. But if you're saying to me that this house has to go to sell to the marketplace via auction, then I'm prepared to shake your hand and just wish you all the best with the campaign. And that's what happened.
I don't think there'd be many people that would be able to do that.
No.
But I've also then had to come out of that meeting and reflect on what could I have done better to convince them on the commercial merit of what I was trying to put forward. Maybe I could have done better at justifying why that was the right process. So that then leads to another exercise for me to go away and think about of like, how could I have done that better? But I also believe, and I don't know whether this has been subconscious, whether it's been strategic, I can't claim it. I do believe that with what I've wanted to go and achieve in the longer term on a global scale, I've also known consciously that my skill set and the skills that I have within my repertoire have to be a negotiation skill set. And I feel like subconsciously I've tried to really use any environment I'm in to build that up as best I can, which is, again, one of the reasons why I think I believe in it so much.
Absolutely. So you touched on football a couple of times.
Yeah.
Talk us through, you've had always a big passion for it. Talk us through, I guess, what you've looked at with that, and then what's to come with the football side of things.
Well, it was actually I just spoke at ARIC back when I was in my mid-20s, and I came off stage and I was a bit lost, to be honest, and I felt like I needed to go and travel, and I felt like I needed to go and just sort of explore different things in life and just sort of learn different things.
Why do you think you were lost after coming off the stage of a real estate conference that's everyone aspires to be a part of, and you have industry, heavyweights there? Why do you think at 25 years old you came out of there?
I just lost track of who I was at that point.
Yeah.
I just wasn't completely sure of where I was going or what I was doing or who I was, and I didn't like it. So I'd listened to enough podcasts at that time to realise that if you want to go away and figure some stuff out, the whole cliche of travel is how you do it. So off I went. And very quickly when I started travelling, I realised that I also need some sort of intellectual stimulation from something commercial. I can't just sit in a rice field with a journal and drink coconuts. Start to go a little bit mad. So
very quickly.
2 days in, okay.
What's next?
I started selling coconuts. Just a little side hustle.
From ARIC to selling coconuts.
Exactly. No, I mean, the reason I raise it is because, for any young agent out there, it's like, it's okay to put this massive thing on a pedestal and achieve it and get there and go, okay, now I need to sort of rewire myself. I think that's the stages of evolution in life, But yeah, so I went over to Europe and I started to just watch football. I'd always loved football. I'd always had like a real passion for it. And then I went over, I started sort of exploring it as a marketplace and all that sort of stuff. And then I went back into it sort of a year later fully. And my dream was to stand in a football stadium and do a deal. I did that. And then I genuinely, based on the way the market operated and based on just sort of the way football works, I probably wasn't mature enough commercially at the time to really kick on and have the success that I felt like I could maybe go and have. That's me being really honest. So that led to me sort of becoming a little bit confused about that whole sort of marketplace as well. I feel like I made some good inroads and I feel like I learnt the basis of how it worked. I mean, I did a deal. I did do some business within the European football market. But I think as a person, I probably still had a lot of personal growth, a lot of maturity and a lot of things that I need to learn about myself before I was really in a position to go and tackle it the way I want to moving forward.
Did you know that at the time?
No, of course. And it's funny, I look back now at him and go like, what were you thinking, mate? Like, how did you even think remotely? At 25, you're in a position to go, or 26 to go and like pull that off. But I think that sort of that naivety almost, but also like a little bit of arrogance, you need, because if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have all the data and all the information and all the experience to draw upon now when I'm fine-tuning the next steps to go and do it again. And then came back and got back into real estate again. That was when I launched my first business. I'd never actually launched a business before. So that was when I came back to Melbourne and obviously set up my own real estate business, which I did for a few reasons, but it was more a case of, okay, like if you're going to be back, like let's do it your way now. Let's do it. Let's see if you can do it. And then, just be the master of your own destiny a little bit.
In terms of heading overseas, doing the deal, coming back, moments of adversity along the way, coming back then into real estate, I suppose there's a bit of a spotlight on you to set up your own business.
Yeah.
Was there anything that whilst you're away that you then brought back into your own, now you've launched Fisher as your own real estate business in Melbourne?
Yeah, I'd picked up, in my opinion, and I just felt like the way the world was heading, like if you look at mainstream media now, it's collapsed. You've got your Piers Morgans, your Joe Rogans, these sorts of people. Like your independent media now is like the catalyst for media. I felt like corporate structure was going to collapse, which I feel like it's started to do and is moving in that direction. So the biggest thing I learned from traveling and being in Europe and being around football and meeting brokers in London and meeting brokers in Dubai and, all this sort of stuff, like just a completely different commercial world. What I brought back with me was, okay, I want to build a business that has an ecosystem, not a commercial structure. Because I want to be able to have best in class around me that I can draw upon, but I don't want to have to scale it into a business that I'm managing people and, all this sort of stuff. Because I felt like personal brand is going to outweigh corporate brand. And I felt like if you've got an ecosystem with best in class and you can run that ecosystem, I think you become more nimble, you're more flexible, but you add more value in the market. That's what I believed. So I came back to Melbourne with that as a premise, and I was like, okay, I need to just find the best media team, the best photographer, the best stylist, the best admin, the best accountant and the best lawyer. And I'm going to get those people around me, and then I'm going to list and sell. And then I'm going to be in a position where I might not become a volume business, but the business that I'm doing is a very high level. Very high level. It also means that any brand equity that I build up with Fisher, I can take anywhere I want in the world because I'm the business. And all I need to do if I change markets is change the ecosystem. So that was the biggest thing that I learned coming back. And that was why my business model was no open for inspections, purely private appointment, no auctions, no EOIs, purely private sale, no rent roll. I'm a listing and sell business. I don't get bogged down in rentals. I don't get bogged down in open for inspection. I don't get bogged down in anything. I market the properties to a very high level. I run them as a private negotiation, and you deal with me from start to finish. This is my process. Let's go. So that was the biggest thing that I came back and sort of had as a premise to launch the business.
Good luck to any buyer who walked into one of those private appointments.
Yeah.
What would you say out of then coming back into doing that? Maybe give us a bit of an insight on your non-negotiables, some of your routine, and then also maybe talk a little bit about some of your most memorable sales or listings that you've had.
Yeah. I think in terms of routine, you need to have a structure, like you need to have a parameter that you work to. And you need to be very disciplined across multiple sort of facets of your life. But I'm not somebody who believes in like get up at a set time, like if you become too regimented, you lose your creativity. I know that I become more creative at night. That's when my sort of neurological, like whatever kicks in, right?
So you're a night owl?
I am, mate. I am. I think that might come from cooking. I don't know, but like at night time, I'm like, okay, I've just hit like some gear that I didn't have for the last 5 hours.
What time does that kick in?
Like 6, 7 o'clock, and that rides me right through to like sort of 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Like that's when I'm just at my creative. In the mornings, I'm operational. Like I'm still, doing what I need to do. So generally speaking, I like to get all the like admin and stuff done in the morning, and then I try and set my day up to sort of go from there. I think the biggest advice is to just find out what works for you. You can listen to any podcast, diets, journal, routine, like there's so much stuff out there. I think if you can simplify it and just, really work out what's best for you, then that's going to help. But in terms of non-negotiables, it's be very, very data and analytically driven. Very, because I feel like that gives you an understanding of the market that allows you to articulate things with more competency, which builds more trust, which builds more relationships, which generates more business, and it generates more good business, good high-level business. Yeah. I think just be honest. Have the conversations you need to have with vendors, have them with the buyers, just generally in your life. Be honest, if you can.
It's a good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And just work incredibly hard. I think working very hard is a skill. I don't think it's a talent. I don't think you're born with a work ethic. I think you have to do the work to find what's driving you. That is your own personal journey to go on. But I think once you've found out what that is, it's then your responsibility to apply work ethic to that will determine whether or not it becomes successful. And I think if you've got those three things as a pillar, you know, I say to people in listening presence at times, like, you know, photography, we all use similar photographers, we all use similar videographers, except, you know, AC Media are very, very good.
Shout out AC
Cheeky
Media.
plug.
Shout out AC Media. Yeah, obviously there's people that operate at a higher caliber, but broadly speaking, a floor plan's a floor plan, copy's copy. If you're going to sell your house, it's going to go on REA, it's going to go on Domain, right? So generally speaking, it's pretty consistent in terms of what agents are offering as a package, right? What separates people apart is the way they communicate, the way they negotiate, the way they articulate, and the way they facilitate a process. So how are you doing that? What's your system? What's your touch points? How are you communicating? That's the sort of stuff that needs to become your non-negotiables and the things that set you apart.
Very good. I think a lot of people probably would get caught in we need to have a perfect routine. We need to have that. But having, as you said, what works for you and, you know, what works for everyone is different.
Yeah, and that's probably the beauty of real estate, where as a profession it is very flexible and can be flexible. So if you do prefer to work later, then you can structure your day around that. Whereas if you prefer to get up early, you're an early riser, and then, you know, finish earlier in the day or at the night and spend more time with family and friends.
Correct.
Real estate allows that, which is great.
Yeah, and I mean, I go back to my early days on the phone. My highest hit rate in terms of conversations that were dollar productive or relationship generating took place of an evening.
Yeah.
The majority of the time.
Yep.
Because people are at home, their day's finished, they're a little bit more receptive, your connect rate's higher.
No one wants to.
Yeah, if you're going into that call with a good energy and you're adding value straight away and you're actually being inquisitive about their situation, what's your strategy in the market? I'm just touching base. They look at it and go, 7:30, I like this guy, I like his tonality. Geez, he's not being too pushy. Wow, he's working hard, he's working late, he's adding value, he knows the market inside and out. Shit, he's just got off the phone and sent me a text message. That calendar invitation that he promised me he's going to send me, that's come through. He's touched base with me 15 minutes before the meeting next Wednesday. Do you know what I mean? Like you just start to really build a business doing that, I think. Yeah.
Memorable sales.
There's two. Well, there's probably three, but the Melbourne square metre record, that for me is something that, you know, I'm going to be really proud of for a very long time. That was on Beach Street. I know for a fact that the strategy that I put forward on that is why that result took place. I'm very, very, very firm on that. So that's why I'm so proud of it, because it set the square metre record in Melbourne for a waterfront home per square metre, which is a great result, obviously. It's fantastic for the vendors. But I just looked at that property. It was a very difficult property to break down and strategize. And I looked at it and went, okay, there has to be a way, because I know how amazing the property is. But if you go off square metre rates, you can't build a commercial case study. If you go off opportunity cost, there's 4 or 5 opportunities a year that come up on the beach that would give you something similar. So I had to really go into the nitty gritty of the asset and what it offered, and build a strategy out from there, and then really stand firm on that in the market. And thankfully, we got the result that we anticipated, and it was a really good result. I would say a penthouse that I sold very early in my career, only because of what it meant to certain people around me at the time. And what it meant for my career moving forward, and the confidence it gave me. It gave me a lot of confidence.
I know the one.
Yeah. And then I would say the first sale that I did in Sydney, just because that was a very difficult period of my life, and to land in a completely different state with just an idea at the time, and sell for a duplex record in the area, first sale. It really gave me the belief in myself that, okay, your process works, it's transferable. This is what you've been trying to learn. These are the things you're trying to really reaffirm to yourself, so you can do something on a global scale. And while Sydney, you know, ultimately wasn't something that I did for a long time, I got out of it the lessons I needed to, and I applied myself as best I could in that period of my life. And then outside of real estate would be standing in a football stadium and doing a deal for a young lad from Fiorentina to Derby, and just seeing it come up on BBC Sport that, you know, my football transfer, and, you know, that was something I'd used to watch as a kid, you know, the yellow writing down the bottom of the screen, and seeing the player's name that I'd moved, just sitting there. I remember I was sat in a hotel, he was finished doing his medical, and it came up. That's a highlight for me. Because again, that's that visualization of going, okay, you've done it. Where do you want to take this? Where do you want to take this? Yeah.
And didn't you get featured in an article, international article overseas?
There's been a couple of publications over time. I mean, the New York Times, they bought out a company called The Athletic. So The Athletic had written an article about the business, and then the New York Times acquired The Athletic, and then that allowed them to republish it. So technically, the New York Times have published it, but it was The Athletic who originally did the piece. But
we'll say it was the New York Times.
Yeah, well, technically,
right,
I mean, it
with
is.
that. Yeah.
I mean, they are the publication now that owns the rights to that article, and they've republished it and all that sort of stuff. So it's great. It's a nice thing to see. And again, it's just that little reaffirmation that, you know, the business model that I've been building for many years now in football is starting to take shape. Yeah.
Yep. Nice.
I notice when you talk about properties, you're very much relating them back to the clients.
Yeah.
Now, we as a business model and as a key pillar of our business, we're very much about the clients. It's not about us as the agents. We don't put our faces on boards. We don't put our faces on brochures. It's not about us.
No.
In your dealings with a lot of your clients that you've had, and they range from price points to, you know, generally in the higher end of the market of Melbourne.
Yeah.
And you've got, I notice you don't talk about dollar value or the dollar of the asset. Why is that?
It's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. It literally is irrelevant. That's the best answer.
Yeah.
It doesn't even come into my thought process. The only time I really worry about price is when I am in the negotiation trying to justify where I think the value of the asset should be as a bare minimum, and then trying to justify on top of that what I think they need to pay in order to secure it. But yeah, the achievement itself for me doesn't come down to the value of the asset at all. And that's what I was trying to say to you about, you know, younger agents. Don't try and tie your self-worth into the value of the properties that you're selling. Tie your self-worth. Self-worth, by definition, is the accumulation of not breaking promises to yourself. That's ultimately what builds your self-esteem and your self-worth. And the reason I mention that is because it's the little things that you're doing on a daily basis that should be giving you that gratification and giving you that sort of feedback loop. So, you know, eat what you say you're going to eat. Get up when you say you're going to get up. Make the calls you say you're going to make. Be honest with the clients that you're sort of dealing with. Make sure that you've got the commercial justification. You couldn't have done any more analysis on the strategy that asset needs to be maximised in the market. That's the sort of stuff that should be giving you the gratification. And that's why, like with Beach Street, I said to you, I looked at it and went, okay, this sale could go generic and it could sell like this every day of the week. Or if we go a different approach, how can I wanted to set the record on that road. Because I had a lot of success on that street. I wanted to have the square metre record on that road.
So what would you say the generic result would have been, and what was the result that you ended up getting? Like how much, based on the strategy you put together, what was the difference?
I would say it's about $1 million.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I would say it's about $1 million.
As a percentage, what would that sort of work out to be?
What do you mean, sorry?
As a percentage above what you thought market value was,
well,
as to what you achieved?
Based on the other sort of information they were being told, it was probably sort of 15-20%.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. But for the buyer that went into it, there was a justification for them because of the holding pattern that they're going to have on the asset, the lifestyle that they're going to experience, you know, all these sorts of things. So, yeah, the monetary value really shouldn't come into it. That's not really what you should be getting caught up on. I think if you've done a good job and you've maximised the process, then that's what you can take merit from. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So it definitely seems like you have based your entire business around having a very tailored and individual approach to every property and even every client as well. And but I would say as a business, that's probably a big thing for us, as opposed to just looking at the properties that we're listing as just another one on the board. We just really try to make sure that every approach is very tailored and very, very unique for that person and that particular property, to ensure that it's then the value is then maximised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with the way the market's moving, the way the industry's moving, the way the world's moving, without that, you're going to get left behind.
Definitely.
I think the days of slapping a board on the front of a house and standing there collecting names and numbers and saying good luck is slowly starting to disintegrate. Thank God. Because I don't believe in that strategy at all. It's not a strategy.
Yeah.
It's not. It's really not.
No.
Yeah.
I think the other big thing on what you were touching on there is you are very authentic with who you are and how you deliver yourself, and you know that there'll be clients that will buy into you and they'll say, yeah, bang, that's the guy I'm going.
Yeah.
Where do we sign?
And vice versa, there's people that don't. And that's completely fine as well.
But I think that level of confidence to know that there are people out there who trust in what you do, trust your process, trust that you are going to do exactly, and that comes with that level of knowledge and communication.
Yeah.
Be okay with that. And I know from experience as a younger agent, trying to be probably all things to everyone meant you were nothing.
Correct.
You had no cut through because you were trying to be someone that you weren't.
But also, like, I honestly believe who you are outside of business is who you bring into business. I really believe that. Okay. And I've had enough case studies over the course of my life and people I've met where it's proven that way. Right. The reason I raise that is because look at the best friends you have in your life. Right. You should be on a basis with them where you're very authentic and very almost vulnerable at times and genuine and honest. And it is what it is. You are who you are. Right. And these are your strengths and these are maybe some of your weaknesses on a friendship level.
Yeah.
Relationships that you have. The best ones that you have are built off a level of authenticity, and, you know, that's the way it should be. In business, it's exactly the same. It's like that house I was explaining to you that they were very honest with me. Listen, Ryan, we want to go with you, but we want to go auction. Like, that's where we're at. We're not moving on that. Okay, I really respect that. It's your asset. It's your family. They're your little girls. You're the ones making the move. It's your money. You've spent 15 years putting the wealth together to accumulate the money for this asset. Who am I to tell you that you're wrong? I just have to respect that you're being honest with me about it. But on the on the other side, I'm not going to change who I am just to get the business. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like you said, that might come across as confident. I think it's just being very firm with who you are and the way you operate.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think there's that level of confidence that you build over a period of time, and it's never an overnight process.
No. And then, you know, there's been periods in my life where you lose it completely and you've got to completely rebuild it, which, you know, we've all been through.
100%. Yeah. Oh, I think it's been very, we obviously, you know, pick your brains as often as we can, but I think for anyone who, you know, wants to know what life inside Ryan Fisher's head is, there's...
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been really lovely to watch your guys' journey, to be honest. You know, I remember sitting with you, you know, you were not in your infancy, you were doing really well at the time, but you were just at that sort of growth mindset and very inquisitive and very, you know, curious about where you wanted to take yourself. Had the pleasure of getting to know you a little bit more recently, and you know, I think what you guys have got here is what I believe the industry needs moving forward, which is the processes and systems of a franchise and that sort of volume-based business, but with the finesse and the sort of tailored approach and the relationship-based sort of model of something that's a little bit more boutique and a little bit more tailored. And you guys are the business, and I think that has a lot of value as well. People know who they're dealing with, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's been really impressive to watch what you guys have done, and yeah, it's nice. It's good.
Appreciate it.
No, it's fine.
What's next for you?
Well, I've just come off the back of a year where I really wanted to go away and figure a lot of stuff out, I would say, in terms of what I wanted to do long term and direction wise. It was really important for me after Sydney. Sorry, I don't know why I keep doing that. It was really important for me after Sydney to go away and just take time to do something a little bit different. So I went over to Asia and had a really great year over there. And just the two things I promised myself at the start of the year was, okay, this start of last year, you have to travel for 12 months. It's non-negotiable. It doesn't matter what ideas come into your brain. It doesn't matter what little things might come up. Just you need to commit to doing 12 months over there and just going on that sort of personal journey that I needed to go on. I felt like I needed to, just mature a little bit and just learn different things about myself and see the world in a different way. And then the second thing was, if football's still having the conversation with you that it's had for many years now in your head, you need to come back and you need to go in 100%. For me, the thing that's attractive with football is, as I've sort of grown as a person and I've started to work out what's of value to me, and what I really put a sort of onus of wanting to have, there's sort of 4 pillars, I would say. I know that I'm always going to need that sort of commercial stimulation and the commercial complexity of doing something that's very difficult and very sort of interesting and that I find enjoyable and hard.
The challenge.
That's challenging me and pushing me. Football gives me that. I want to have a business model that allows me to sit wherever I want in the world and operate at a very high level commercially, but be very nomadic. I don't want to be glued to a position. That's actually been something that people have thrown at me as a negative over the last sort of 7 or 8 years. Like, fish doesn't sit still, he moves around, to the point where I started to believe it as a negative. It's not a negative. I've actually come to the realization that that's just the way I'm wired. So instead of trying to fight it, let's build a business that
works with it.
Right? Thankfully, this is where the brokering skill set comes in. Football gives me that. It gives me the ability to be able to sit nomadic, operate at a very high level commercially. The third pillar for me is then having a lifestyle that comes from that, being able to explore the countries that I want to explore, build a family, all that sort of stuff, but on terms that suit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, one day I'll get a base and things like that, who knows where. And then the fourth thing that I really have held on to with football that I find so attractive about it is it will give me a platform on a global scale to be able to tackle social and economic issues at a very, very strong level as well.
Interesting.
Which gives me the 4 pillars of things that I really have come to value. So in terms of that, what's next for me is to go and get this thing done once and for all. I feel like it's been a journey to get to this point, but I feel like I've got the business model now. I feel like I've got the strategy. I feel like I've got the commercial skill set, shall we say, the life experience, the personal maturity. Things that maybe I was lacking, I feel like I've managed to go and really put together. And sure, there's going to be things that I need to learn. Sure, there's going to be a period
Always.
in 10 years where I look back and go, what were you even talking about?
Always.
Just like 10 years ago, I've been saying the same now. I get all that, but I feel like I'm as ready as I've ever been, and I feel like I've got clarity for the first time on what I really want to go and achieve and why. And that's the key thing. That's the key thing that I've landed on that I never used to have. It's the why. It's not because I want to do a transfer for 100 million euros. It's not. It's for the 4 pillars that I've just articulated. It's not because I want to be in the newspaper. It's because I want to have the 4 pillars that I've just articulated. Those 4 pillars are my value set now. That's what I want to achieve. That's the way I want to live. That's how I want to operate. And that's what I'm going to go and build. The business is almost like a side dish that will get my full focus and full attention. But what that's building me is the things that I now value more than anything, which is
the life you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I think now I've got clarity on that. I think I'll be okay. But I've still got to go and do it. So
that's
it. Mate, we'll be watching from afar, and
100%.
We'll definitely come over and say hello.
Yeah, it'll be great. And like I said, congratulations on everything you've done here, and
Thank you.
I've got no doubt it'll be continued success. And it's been great to see you.
You too, man.
You too. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, boys.
Nice. All right.